Every ending is a beginning disguised in dust. The collapse of who you were is not destruction, it's reconfiguration. In the quantum field, nothing truly dies, it only changes frequency. Energy cannot be destroyed, it only transforms form. The same law applies to you. The you think you are, the identity built from memory, fear, comparison, and repetition, is not fixed. It's a pattern of vibration held together by belief. And belief is just a tension frozen in time. When the old self begins to crumble, it feels like death because your nervous system is losing its familiar resonance. The ego calls it failure. The field calls it evolution. Because the collapse of an old frequency is required for a new one to emerge. The truth is simple. The old you must collapse for the quantum you to rise. And that collapse is not the end of life, it's the beginning of awareness. We live inside patterns of identity, electromagnetic signatures shaped by emotion. Each thought, each reaction, each choice adds data to the field. Over time, that data becomes a personality. And personality becomes destiny. You think of yourself as constant, but the universe only sees frequency. When your vibration repeats the same emotional state, fear, guilt, doubt, the field mirrors it as repetitive experiences. That's not punishment, it's physics. To change reality, you must interrupt the pattern. But to interrupt the pattern, you must be willing to let it die. You must face the terrifying silence that arrives when your old narrative no longer fits. That silence is sacred. It's the quantum void, the womb of creation, where every potential version of you waits to be observed into being. The void feels empty only because it's infinite. The ego calls it death, consciousness calls it home. Death, in the quantum sense, is not an event. It's a process of disidentification. You are not losing yourself, you are shedding false resonance. Every emotion you release, every attachment you surrender, frees energy trapped in obsolete frequencies. That energy returns to the field, uncharged, neutral, ready to form something new. When you stop clinging to who you were, you return to pure potential. You become wave again, infinite, undefined, electric. The moment you observe yourself as new, the waveform collapses into form. That's rebirth. But you cannot resurrect while still negotiating with your past. You can't step into quantum coherence while defending the fragments of identity that kept you small. The phoenix cannot rise while holding on to its ashes. You don't lose your identity to become nothing. You dissolve it to become everything. Every transformation begins with a fracture. The cracks in your life are not mistakes, they are entry points for light. When everything stable starts to shake, it means the frequency is destabilizing, preparing for recalibration. In traditional language, this is the dark night of the soul. In quantum language, it's decoherence, when an old system of energy can no longer sustain its previous order. The field begins to reconfigure. And in that chaos, new information can finally enter. This is why surrender is the highest form of intelligence, because control reinforces the dying pattern. But surrender opens the channel for a higher frequency to reorganize you. The moment you stop resisting, the particles of your life, thoughts, emotions, relationships, begin to rearrange into new geometry. It's not destruction, it's design. Rebirth requires collapse, and collapse is love disguised as chaos. You've been taught to fear endings. But in the quantum field, endings are expansion in disguise. When an old identity dissolves, energy that was locked in repetition becomes free to explore new probability. Grief is simply the vibration of attachment releasing. It's energy returning to the void, seeking coherence in a higher form. If you allow it, that same grief becomes gratitude. Because loss reveals how deeply you were capable of loving. Every tear is a recalibration. Every breath after letting go is a new timeline unfolding. The field doesn't mourn, it updates. And so do you. You are not dying. You are deprogramming. You are letting the signal of your past fade so that a cleaner, clearer frequency can transmit through you. That's what rebirth feels like, uncomfortable clarity. The ego fears non-existence because it cannot imagine beyond its own pattern. It believes survival equals identity. But you are not meant to survive your old self. You are meant to transcend it. The quantum field doesn't recognize your name, your history, or your face. It recognizes only your vibration. When that vibration changes, everything attached to the old frequency begins to fall away. Jobs end. Relationships fade. Habits disintegrate. And in that dismantling, the new geometry of self begins to form. The transition feels like death because part of you, the one addicted to familiarity, is dying. But it's dying into freedom. Each surrender creates space for more coherence. The unknown isn't emptiness. It's creative infinity waiting for your next observation. There is a sacred stillness that follows collapse. No identity. No plan. Only awareness. This is the quantum womb where rebirth is conceived. It's tempting to rush this phase, to rebuild the personality immediately. But silence is integration. In the void, the field rearranges your neural and energetic architecture. New pathways, new chemical signatures, new potentials start aligning. If you can rest here without panic, you will feel something subtle. The heartbeat of your next self pulsing in the dark. It's not loud. It's rhythm. It's coherence forming from chaos. Patience is power. Because the field only organizes when you stop forcing it. Stillness is not waiting, it's building. In quantum rebirth, awareness becomes the alchemist. The more you observe the process without judgment, the faster it stabilizes. Observation is creation. When you look at your transformation through the eyes of acceptance, you collapse higher probabilities of self. Judgment locks you into the past. Curiosity unlocks the future. So watch yourself like a scientist studying a star being born. Notice the flares, the contractions, the eruptions, all part of expansion. Every time you forgive yourself for not being there yet, the field accelerates alignment. Forgiveness clears interference. Self-criticism distorts signal. You are not broken. You are just between vibrations. The old resonance is fading, the new one hasn't fully taken form. This in-between is the bridge of rebirth. Walk it with wonder, not fear. Metamorphosis is messy. A caterpillar dissolves itself entirely before it becomes a butterfly. Inside the cocoon there is no shape, only fluid intelligence reorganizing. That's what you are. A consciousness melting into light to be recast into form. You can't skip the disintegration phase. The discomfort, the confusion, the emptiness, all necessary ingredients of transformation. Every emotion surfacing is residue leaving your field. The alchemy is happening even when you can't see it. You are rewiring your electromagnetic field at the subatomic level. Every time you surrender an old reaction, you open a new potential of identity. It may not feel like progress, but the field measures vibration, not comfort. Your coherence is increasing. You are becoming light again. Letting go is not loss, it's liberation. Every attachment carries weight. Every expectation bends your frequency toward density. When you release, you lighten the field. The paradox is that you cannot consciously try to let go. Trying is resistance disguised as effort. Letting go happens naturally when understanding replaces control. You see that clinging never protected you, it only postponed transformation. The universe doesn't take anything from you, it reassigns energy to higher order. If something leaves, it's making room for alignment. If someone disappears, they've finished reflecting that version of you. When you stop chasing what left, you start magnetizing what's next. The void is not punishment, it's preparation. The empty space you fear is the exact space where new light will enter. Rebirth is not always gentle. Sometimes it burns. The fire you feel is the frequency of resistance turning to light. Pain is not the enemy, it's pressure releasing distortion. The body trembles, the heart races, the mind begs for certainty. These are symptoms of expansion. You are growing beyond your previous bandwidth. Your nervous system is learning to hold more energy, more light, more truth. You are not collapsing, you are conducting. Each wave of intensity is proof that the field is updating. Trust the recalibration. The Phoenix myth was always about you. Ashes are just the remains of resistance. When you burn with awareness, the fire doesn't destroy, it purifies. Quantum rebirth requires honesty. You cannot transcend what you refuse to face. The old identity survives on denial, awareness dissolves it instantly. So meet your shadows without armor. They are not demons, they are data. Every fear carries information about where your frequency still fragments. When you observe fear without feeding it, it converts to power. Because attention is energy, and energy follows observation. By facing the shadow, you reclaim the energy it was using to hide. Integration means nothing is excluded. You don't reject the ego, you repurpose it. It becomes a tool of navigation rather than a prison of perception. The goal was never to destroy the self, but to see through it. Once seen, illusion dissolves. And what remains is consciousness, clear, unbound, infinite. Rebirth is coherence remembering itself. The new self doesn't arrive from outside, it emerges from within when interference ends. You stop seeking alignment and realize you are alignment. Every cell begins to vibrate differently. You speak slower, breathe deeper, sense subtler. Your energy field stabilizes into harmony. People feel it before they understand it. The quantum you doesn't need to prove anything. It moves in silence, acts through intuition, trusts the unknown. Life stops being a struggle and becomes choreography, motion directed by resonance. When you reach that point, time bends. Synchronicities multiply. You're no longer manifesting, you're magnetizing. You are no longer healing, you are remembering wholeness. The true death of ego is not dramatic, it's peaceful. It dies when it realizes it was never in control. It bows to the field and becomes servant to awareness. You no longer need to defend identity. You can watch thoughts arise and fade like waves. You let others be right without losing yourself. You stop explaining and start embodying. That stillness is not apathy, it's sovereignty. You become a calm center in a spinning world. And from that calm, creation flows effortlessly. Power without force. Confidence without noise. Presence without past. That is the signature of the reborn self. As the new identity integrates, you notice that the world itself seems different. Colors appear richer. Sound feels deeper. Coincidences align with precision. You are not imagining it, your perception bandwidth has widened. Your reticular system filters reality based on frequency. When the frequency changes, perception expands. You begin to perceive what was always there but previously invisible to your vibration. Reality hasn't changed, you have. You are now tuned to a higher coherence and the field mirrors it instantly. That's the reward of death and rebirth, expanded awareness. What once looked like chaos now appears as design. What once felt random now feels orchestrated. The orchestra was always playing, you finally joined in tune. The reborn self doesn't chase, it emanates. It doesn't seek purpose, it becomes purpose. Because alignment itself is direction. You act not from fear of missing out but from joy of being in tune. You no longer need validation, resonance is enough. What matches you comes naturally, what doesn't simply fades. Creation becomes effortless. You speak and the field responds. Not because you're commanding reality but because you've become coherent with it. This is mastery, when the observer and the observed merge into one awareness. When doing dissolves into being. When manifestation becomes maintenance of vibration. Rebirth isn't becoming new, it's remembering eternity. Sometimes the new self feels unfamiliar, too peaceful, too quiet. After years of noise, peace can feel empty. But emptiness is space and space is freedom. It's where new worlds form. Don't rush to fill the silence. Let it expand. You are learning to breathe the air of infinity. The mind will try to recreate struggle, it misses the adrenaline of survival. Smile at it. Thank it for keeping you alive long enough to awaken. Then return to stillness. Stillness is not absence of life, it's presence of eternity. The universe moves through it effortlessly. And now, so do you. At the peak of rebirth, gratitude becomes your default state. Not the gratitude of counting blessings, but the gratitude of existing. You wake and feel thankful for breath, for light, for awareness itself. This vibration attracts miracles because it matches the frequency of creation. The universe is grateful to express itself through you. When you feel that same gratitude, coherence between you and the cosmos becomes seamless. Life becomes reciprocal. You give love by existing. You receive love by allowing. It's the same flow moving both ways. Gratitude finalizes the death of the old self. Because you stop wishing for what you already are. The final stage of quantum rebirth is transparency. Identity becomes translucent. Light passes through without distortion. You are no longer a separate being trying to reach enlightenment. You are consciousness illuminating itself through a form called you. This is liberation. You can play any role, wear any mask, and never forget the awareness behind it. You are the actor in the stage, the wave in the ocean. Creation becomes play again. Seriousness fades. Wonder returns. You laugh more, forgive faster, love without reason. Because the drama dissolved with the illusion of separation. And in that laughter, the universe recognizes itself smiling back. Take a final breath. Feel how vast you've become. The one who started this journey, the old self clinging to identity, no longer exists. In its place stands awareness, silent, luminous, free. You have died without dying. You have collapsed without breaking. You have become wave again, infinite and whole. This is quantum rebirth, the art of dying consciously, the courage to release form so new creation can arise. The ego dissolves, the field expands. The ashes glow with gold. And from them, coherence is born. You were never meant to stay the same. You were meant to evolve infinitely, to die and resurrect countless times while still breathing. Because that's what the universe does, it collapses and creates, endlessly reborn through you. So let the old you rest. Bow to it with gratitude. And rise, not as someone new, but as the timeless frequency remembering itself through your light.